Everyone has access to perfect strategy now. Solvers can calculate optimal plays in milliseconds. AI can simulate millions of hands overnight. The information that used to take decades to accumulate is now available to anyone with an internet connection and $40 a month. And yet, most people using these tools are still losing. Most people with access to perfect information are still making terrible decisions. Most people who can tell you exactly what the correct play is cannot execute it when everything is on the line. This should bother you, because if knowledge were enough, the world would be full of winners. It's not. If tools were enough, the people with the best tools would dominate every domain. They don't. If AI were enough, most people studying with solvers would already be profitable. They aren't. Here's what nobody wants to admit. AI can teach you what to think. It cannot teach you how to think, and that gap, the space between knowing and doing, between calculation and judgment, between having the answer and having the courage to act on it when you're scared, exhausted, and under pressure, that gap is where winning actually happens. This video is about that gap. Not about poker specifically, though poker will be our lens. This is about decision-making in its rawest form, the kind that determines careers, businesses, relationships, and lives. The kind that no algorithm can master because no algorithm has anything to lose. If you've ever wondered why some people with inferior resources consistently outperform people with superior ones, you're about to understand why. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Let me explain what AI actually does in poker, because most people misunderstand this completely. A solver is an algorithm that calculates game theory optimal strategy. It runs millions of simulations, weighing every possible action against every possible response, until it finds a set of plays that cannot be exploited over infinite repetitions. In theory, if you played perfectly according to the solver, no opponent could have a long-term edge against you. This sounds like the end of the game. It sounds like the answer. It sounds like cheating. But here's what the solver actually provides. It tells you what to do when nothing matters except the mathematics of this single hand. It doesn't know you're tired. It doesn't know you've been playing for 12 hours and your focus is deteriorating. It doesn't know you lost the last 3 big pots and your confidence is shaken. It doesn't know your bankroll is at a level that makes this tournament feel like life or death. It doesn't know that the player across from you just showed weakness in a way that has nothing to do with game theory and everything to do with the fact that he's been making eye contact less often since he 3-bet you an hour ago. The solver plays in a vacuum. Humans play in reality. And reality is full of variables that no algorithm can weight because they're not mathematical. They're psychological. They're emotional. They're contextual in ways that resist quantification. They're about history, identity, relationships, fear, and desire. When a solver tells you to call a river shove with a certain hand at a certain frequency, it's assuming you'll make that decision with perfect neutrality. It's assuming the size of the pot relative to your life circumstances is irrelevant. It's assuming you have no history, no identity, no ego, no fear. It's assuming that this decision exists in complete isolation from every decision before and after it. In other words, it's assuming you're not human. This is why the best players in the world don't play like solvers. They use solver outputs as a foundation, then deviate based on reads, timing, pressure, and 1,000 other factors that exist in the real game but not in the simulation. The solver gives them information. Their judgment turns that information into decisions. Information is not judgment. And judgment is what separates professionals from people who've just memorized the right answers. Before we go deeper, I want to make sure you have the framework for what I'm about to explain. The concepts in this video build on principles that most people never learn until it's too late. I put together a free PDF called The Strategy Most Players Learn Too Late that covers these foundations in detail. The link is in the pinned comment. Download it now, because what comes next will make much more sense with that context. Now let me show you where this gets interesting. There's a critical distinction that most people miss entirely. Playing correctly is not the same as playing to win. They look similar from the outside. They're profoundly different in practice. Playing correctly means making mathematically optimal decisions in isolation. It means executing the solver's output with mechanical precision. It means minimizing error according to a theoretical framework that assumes infinite hands and infinite opportunities to realize expected value. Playing to win means making decisions that account for the reality you're actually in. It means recognizing that you don't have infinite hands. You have this tournament, this session, this life. It means understanding that the correct play in theory might be the wrong play in practice because of factors that theory doesn't capture. Here's a concrete example. You're at a final table. 3 players left. First place pays $400,000. Third place pays $80,000. You're the chip leader by a small margin. The solver might tell you to put maximum pressure on the medium stack in a specific spot because it's positive expected value against their range. But the solver doesn't know that the short stack has been making mistakes all night and is likely to bust within the next 20 minutes if you just wait. The solver doesn't know that the medium stack is a world-class player who will find the right response if you push. The solver doesn't know that patience, in this exact situation, has a higher practical expected value than aggression because of factors that can't be input into an algorithm. Playing correctly would be to follow the solver. Playing to win would be to wait. This distinction transfers to every domain of life, and almost everyone confuses them. Let me translate this beyond poker, because this is where it actually matters. In business, AI can tell you which marketing channels have the highest return on investment based on historical data. It can optimize your ad spend, predict customer behavior, identify opportunities you might have missed, and analyze competitor patterns with precision no human team could match. What it cannot do is tell you when to abandon a failing strategy before the data fully confirms it's failing. It cannot tell you when to bet everything on an opportunity that doesn't yet have data to support it. It cannot tell you when the mathematically correct move is actually the wrong move because the window is closing and waiting for more information will cost you the opportunity entirely. I've watched entrepreneurs with perfect data lose to entrepreneurs with better timing. I've watched businesses with superior analysis get outmaneuvered by competitors who acted faster on inferior information because they understood something the data couldn't show. That the moment demanded action, not optimization. The entrepreneur who launches too early with an imperfect product sometimes wins everything, while the one who waits for perfect conditions watches the market disappear. The executive who fires an underperforming team member based on intuition sometimes saves a company, while the one who waits for objective metrics to justify the decision sometimes watches the damage spread until it's unfixable. In careers, the same principle applies. The optimal path according to any algorithm would be to maximize salary, minimize risk, and follow the trajectory that historical data suggests produces the best outcomes. But careers are not lived in aggregate. They're lived in specific moments that require judgment about your own tolerances, your own values, your own sense of what constitutes winning. I know people who took the objectively correct career path and ended up successful and miserable. I know people who made decisions that looked foolish by every metric and built lives they actually want to live. The difference wasn't intelligence. It wasn't information. It was the ability to ask the right questions about what winning actually meant for them. AI gives you answers. Winners master questions. This is the fundamental distinction. Most people think they need better answers. What they actually need is the ability to identify which questions matter. And that's a form of judgment that no algorithm possesses, because algorithms don't have preferences. They don't have identities. They don't have stakes. Now I want to explain exactly why AI cannot teach you the things that actually matter. This is where most conversations about technology and human capability get it wrong, and where most people deceive themselves about what they're actually lacking. AI has no skin in the game. When a solver calculates the optimal bluff frequency on the river, it's playing with imaginary chips. The outcome doesn't change its existence. It has no bankroll that could be depleted. It has no career that could be damaged. It has no ego that could be bruised. It has no family depending on the results. It has no identity that's being tested. This isn't a limitation that can be programmed around. It's fundamental to what AI is. An entity that has nothing to lose cannot teach you how to perform when you have everything to lose. The lesson doesn't transfer because the context is completely different. The mechanics of decision-making under zero stakes bear no resemblance to decision-making when your future depends on the outcome. AI has no fear. When you're facing an all-in bet that represents your entire tournament life, something happens in your nervous system. Your heart rate increases. Your palms sweat. Your thinking changes in ways you can't fully control. Your perception of risk shifts in ways that have nothing to do with mathematics and everything to do with millions of years of evolutionary wiring designed to keep you alive. The solver doesn't experience this. It doesn't need to manage this, and therefore, it cannot teach you how to manage this. It can tell you what the correct decision is. It cannot tell you how to make that decision when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to fold and survive. That's a skill built in the fire, not in the spreadsheet. AI never hesitates. Every decision is computed and executed with identical emotional weight. But human decision-making doesn't work that way. Hesitation is information. The pause before you act communicates something. The way you manage that pause, whether you disguise it, use it strategically, or let it reveal your uncertainty, is part of the game that exists between humans, but not in any simulation. AI cannot teach you when to hesitate on purpose, when to project confidence you don't feel, when to show weakness as a trap. These are human arts that exist in the space between perfect calculation and real competition. There's something deeper here that almost nobody talks about. This is the part most people skip over because it's uncomfortable. Winning requires sacrifice. Not metaphorical sacrifice, actual sacrifice. Giving up something you want in service of something you want more. Making choices that hurt now because they position you correctly for later. Enduring discomfort, rejection, failure, and loneliness in pursuit of outcomes that justify the cost. AI cannot teach sacrifice because AI never gives anything up. It never chooses between competing values because it has no values. It optimizes for a single objective function with perfect clarity because that's all it's designed to do. But human competition isn't about optimizing a single function. It's about navigating trade-offs between things that matter differently to different people. Should you take the higher variance approach that might get you first place or might eliminate you? That depends on what first place means to you, what elimination would cost you psychologically, how that interacts with the rest of your life and goals, and what you're willing to endure for the chance. No algorithm can answer this. The answer is different for everyone, and finding your answer requires a kind of self-knowledge that cannot be computed. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The thing that limits most people is not their strategy. It's their willingness to pay the price that strategy demands. They know what they should do. They just don't do it because doing it requires a sacrifice they haven't decided to make. The player who knows they should study 4 hours a day but only studies 1 isn't lacking information. They're lacking willingness to sacrifice other things for poker. The entrepreneur who knows they should cold call 50 prospects a day but only calls 10 isn't lacking a system. They're lacking willingness to sacrifice comfort for growth. The person who knows they should have a difficult conversation but keeps postponing it isn't lacking awareness. They're lacking willingness to sacrifice temporary peace for necessary change. AI can tell you to take the positive expected value line that involves temporary discomfort. It cannot make you willing to endure that discomfort. It cannot develop your capacity for discomfort. It cannot teach you that the discomfort is the point, that it's the filter separating those who know from those who win. Willingness is not information. It's identity. And identity is built, not computed. Let me give you a real example that will make this concrete. This is the kind of situation that exposes everything. Final table. 6 players remaining. You're holding pocket queens in the big blind. The chip leader raises from early position. You 3-bet. He 4-bets. You have a decision to make. The solver says to call at a certain frequency, fold at a certain frequency, and maybe even 5-bet all in at a small frequency. It gives you a balanced approach that's optimal against a theoretically balanced opponent. But you're not playing against a theoretically balanced opponent. You're playing against a specific human being who has been building a table image all night. He's been aggressive, but his aggression has followed a pattern. The last 2 times he 4-bet in this exact situation, he showed down extremely strong hands. This doesn't prove anything, but it suggests something. He might be unbalanced in this specific spot in a way the solver can't see. More than that, you've noticed something the solver will never see. His 4-bet sizing has been smaller when he's bluffing and larger when he's strong. It's subtle. Most players wouldn't catch it. But you've been paying attention for 3 hours and you think you see it. This 4-bet was larger. Not huge, but noticeably larger than his earlier bluff sizes. What do? The mathematically correct play might be to call and see a flop. The judgment play might be to fold because you've identified a leak in his strategy that suggests he's weighted toward premium hands in this exact situation. You'd be giving up theoretical equity to exploit a real pattern. But here's where it gets complicated. What if you're wrong? What if you fold queens and he had ace-king and was bluffing, and now you have to live with that for the rest of the tournament? Can you handle that psychologically? Will you be able to continue making aggressive folds? Or will this one shake your confidence and turn you passive at exactly the moment you need to stay sharp? And there's another layer. Even if you're right, will you be able to explain it to yourself after? Or will you spend the next hour second-guessing, wondering if you just made a terrible mistake that will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars? Will doubt consume you? This is the game within the game. It's not just about making the right decision. It's about making decisions you can live with. Decisions you can execute consistently. Decisions that account for who you are and what you can tolerate. The solver knows nothing about this. It plays as if decisions have no aftermath. Humans play in a world where every decision echoes forward into every decision that follows. Next, I want to talk about timing, because this is where the gap between AI and human excellence becomes most obvious. This is the part that cannot be systematized. Timing is not about knowing what to do. It's about knowing when to do it. And when is a function of context that changes constantly in ways that resist systematic analysis. In poker, timing means recognizing the exact moment your opponent has shifted from confident to uncertain, the exact hand where aggression will get through instead of being looked up. It means sensing the rhythm of the table and knowing when the energy favors risk and when it favors caution. It means understanding that the same move that would be brilliant in minute 47 of a session would be a disaster in minute 48 because something shifted that you can feel but not prove. In business, timing means launching before you're ready because the market is ready, or waiting, even though you're ready because the market isn't. It means knowing when to push an employee harder and when to give them space, when to close a deal aggressively and when to let silence do the work. When to raise prices because customers are ready to accept value, and when to hold because resistance would cost more than the margin gain. In life, timing means knowing when to have difficult conversations, when to make big asks, when to walk away from things that aren't working. It's the difference between feedback that transforms someone and feedback that breaks them, and that difference often has nothing to do with what you say and everything to do with when you say it. The exact same words delivered on Tuesday might land completely differently than on Thursday, because the person receiving them has shifted in ways that aren't visible but are real. AI can analyze patterns in historical data. It can identify statistical regularities. But timing is not statistical. It's perceptual. It requires reading subtle cues in real time and integrating them with intuition developed over thousands of hours of experience. It requires feeling the moment, not just analyzing it. The best poker players talk about this in ways that sound almost mystical to outsiders. They describe knowing that this was the hand to make a big move, not the hand before or the hand after. They can't always explain why. The explanation comes after, if at all. In the moment, there's only recognition, a sense that arrives before conscious thought, built from pattern recognition too subtle to articulate. This can't be taught by an algorithm because it can't be reduced to an algorithm. It's emergent. It comes from immersion, from paying attention, from caring about outcomes in ways that sharpen perception because the stakes are real. Now let me address the objection that's probably forming in your mind. This is the practical part. If AI can't teach these things, what can? The answer is harder than any calculation. You learn judgment by making decisions under real pressure and living with the consequences. Not simulated pressure, real pressure. The kind where outcomes matter, where you can lose things you value, where there's no undo button. Every hand where your tournament life is at stake teaches you something that a million practice hands cannot. Every business decision where your livelihood depends on the outcome develops capacity that no case study can build. You learn emotional regulation by being exposed to situations that dysregulate you, and developing the capacity to return to clarity. This requires repetition. It requires failure. It requires confronting your own tendencies toward fear, greed, and ego over and over until you can see them arising without being controlled by them. There is no shortcut. You must feel the fear and learn to act anyway. You must feel the greed and learn to recognize it before it hijacks you. You must feel the ego and learn to set it aside when the situation demands clear thinking. You learn timing by paying attention to context with genuine curiosity over extended periods, by noticing patterns that don't fit neatly into categories, by building an intuition that works faster than conscious thought because it's been trained on thousands of real situations. You learn it by caring, by being present, by refusing to autopilot through experiences that could be teaching you. You learn sacrifice by making actual sacrifices and discovering what you're willing to give up and what you're not. This is not intellectual, it's existential. You find out who you are by finding out what you'll trade away and what you won't. None of this can be downloaded. None of it can be optimized. It's the slow accumulation of experiential wisdom that happens when you're actually in the game, not studying the game from outside it. AI can accelerate certain kinds of learning. It can give you information more efficiently, but it cannot give you the thing that converts information into wisdom. That requires you to live through things, not just analyze them. And there's no shortcut for that. Let me synthesize what we've covered, because this is where it becomes actionable. Most people think their limitation is information. They believe that with better tools, better data, better AI, they'll finally be able to perform at the level they imagine they're capable of. This is almost always wrong. Your limitation is probably not information. It's judgment, emotional regulation, timing, or willingness to pay the price that correct decisions require. These are human capacities that must be developed through human means: experience, reflection, mentorship, failure, repetition, and identity-level change. If you want to develop these capacities, here's what actually works. First, increase your exposure to real stakes decisions. Not simulated stakes, real stakes. The level of stakes that activates your nervous system and forces you to confront your actual psychological patterns, not the patterns you think you have when nothing is on the line. Second, study your own decision-making in retrospect. Not just whether decisions worked out, but the process you used to reach them. Where did you deviate from your best judgment? What triggered that deviation? How can you recognize that trigger next time? Third, find people who have the judgment you want to develop and observe them closely. Not to copy their decisions, but to understand how they think. Ask them about their process. Get inside their mental models. Judgment is partially transferable through close observation and conversation. Fourth, accept that development is slow. There is no hack for this. The people with excellent judgment have usually spent years building it through countless decisions and their consequences. You cannot compress this timeline dramatically. You can only be consistent with it. If you want a complete system for this, I've built one. The ebook is called Full eBook, Mind of a Grinder System. It's $10. It covers the frameworks, the practices, and the long-term architecture for building the kind of thinking that actually wins. Link is in the pinned comment alongside the free PDF. I want to leave you with something that might be uncomfortable. This is the part that determines whether this video was interesting or whether it actually changes something. The AI revolution in decision-making will separate people into two groups. The first group will outsource their thinking to algorithms. They will rely on tools to tell them what to do and execute those instructions without developing any independent capacity for judgment. When the tools fail, when the situation doesn't match the training data, when real pressure arrives, they will collapse. They will have sophisticated calculations, but no wisdom. Answers, but no understanding of the questions. They will know what to do and be unable to do it when it matters. The second group will use AI as a tool while developing the capacities that tools cannot provide. They will master the human elements of decision-making, the things that matter precisely because they're hard and cannot be automated. They will have both, the efficiency of algorithms and the judgment to know when algorithms aren't enough. They will be rare. They will be valuable. They will win. The gap between these groups will grow over time. As AI becomes more powerful, the premium on human capacities will increase, not decrease. because everyone will have access to the same computational resources. The differentiator will be who can do the things that computation can't. This is true in poker. It's true in business. It's true in relationships. It's true in every domain where decisions under uncertainty determine outcomes. The question is which group you're joining. And that's not decided by your beliefs about this. It's decided by your actions over time. Are you building the human capacities that matter, or are you outsourcing them and hoping the tools will be enough? Most people will choose outsourcing because it's easier. That's precisely why it won't work. The easy path is crowded. The hard path is where edge lives. I want to leave you with a question. Take it seriously. Think about the biggest decision you're currently avoiding, the one you know the answer to, but haven't acted on. The one where perfect logic points in a clear direction, but something is holding you back. Fear, ego, uncertainty about whether you can handle the consequences, the conversation you should have, the move you should make, the change you know is necessary, but keep postponing because the timing doesn't feel right, even though you know the timing will never feel right. Now ask yourself, what tool could possibly solve that for you? The answer is none. No algorithm can give you the willingness to act. No AI can develop your capacity to tolerate the discomfort of correct but hard decisions. No solver can teach you to be the kind of person who executes under pressure. These are human capacities that require human development. That's on you. It always has been. The tools are distractions from the real work, which is becoming someone who doesn't need to be told what to do because you've developed the judgment to know and the courage to act. This is the real game, not acquiring better information, becoming a better decision maker. And you become a better decision maker by making real decisions, living with real consequences, and doing the inner work that transforms you from someone who knows into someone who wins. The people who understand this have always had an advantage. That advantage is growing, not shrinking. Because as AI makes information more abundant, the premium on judgment, courage, and timing increases. Everyone will have the same answers. The question will be who can use them when it matters. If this changed how you think about AI, tools, and your own development, I want to hear about it. Leave a comment telling me, what's the human capacity you most need to develop? Not what information you lack. What capacity? What ability you need but haven't been willing to build? And if you want more content like this, subscribe to Mind of a Grinder. We don't do motivation. We do clarity. We don't give you better answers. We help you ask better questions. That's what separates winners from everyone else. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.